Hi, I'm John J. Murphy, and I welcome you to the Change Mastery Show with my co-host, Dr. Pat. Together, we invite you to think differently about change, not as something to fear or resist, but as a powerful opportunity for growth, empowerment, joy, and life mastery. My vision? To help millions of people shift from victimhood to leadership, from ego to spirit, and from hesitation and resistance to flow. This is an opportunity for you to get out of your own way and experience life with more courage, confidence, and higher purpose. Get ready. The Change Mastery Show now.
Wow, everybody. This is a great show. Okay, Die Hard. We know that from, Bruce Willis. But today's show is from one of John's 20 books, and it is about habits. Die Hard. So today we're going to take a look at what the 10 steps are, how to build successful habits. We are creatures of habit. If somebody like me, who is now pushing 37 years of sobriety, I know a lot about habits. I learned early on about, okay, I don't care what they say, me sitting in a bar is probably not a great idea. But today we're going to break this down further. How do you make good habits? What are good habits? Will they make you? Today, John's going to walk us through what the subconscious mind does. And yes, we have all got that. Is it powerful? How powerful is it? How do you even know what's going on? So today, how do you exchange bad habits for good habits? Believe it or not, yes, John's going to show us how to do that. What are the 10 steps? Where do I begin? And are we screaming? Are we there yet? Okay, just like my first day of therapy, I'm like, okay, are we done today? Are we done for my life? But maintaining the game, once you're able to do it, how is it some of us have what it takes not to fall back, not to think that, oh, just give me one of those martinis. Just, okay, well, to be honest with you, never been my calling. John, thank you for today. Thank you. Thank you for this show, because I think we have habits and we're developing them more and more, and we don't know it. I will tell you this. I live in a beautiful place, and when I look out and see people walk, they're doing one of two things, one of three things. They're either walking with their cell phone, walking with their dog, or walking with their dog and their cell phone.
Yeah, and here in South Florida, the dog's usually in a stroller. Yeah, you see that all the time. You know what? Habits, we are
Wow.
creatures of habits. You've brought that up, and habits can be friends or foes. So the real key is to say, what is my subconscious mind telling me? And it's telling you whatever it is you're behaving like. So if you have a tendency to get impatient, in traffic, you have a tendency to get angry in certain situations, you have a tendency to feel guilty or ashamed, you have a tendency to stress out and worry a lot. Those are foes. Those are not healthy habits. If you have a tendency to wake up in the morning with a sense of gratitude, and maybe your routine is to spend 20 or 30 minutes meditating every morning, which is what I do, not listening to my phone or tuning into my emails, which is where you're delegating your agenda to something external. Take control and start with um, something as simple as quiet time, just to get centered. We've talked a lot about that on this show. I
Mhm.
like something that Dr. Joe Dispenza says. He says, "What fires together wires together." Now, Dr. Joe he's essentially a brain expert, and he's talking about neurons in the brain. And so, when we think, Earl Nightingale said this: we become what we think. So, if whatever is the story we're telling ourselves, whatever we think and focus on and dwell on, in time wires together. What fires together wires together. There's an ancient Chinese proverb which says, habits are cobwebs at first, cables at last. It's pretty much the same thing, Dr. Joe is saying that at first, um, it's just a bunch of thoughts. And we think these thoughts long enough, they become beliefs. And then beliefs get downloaded into the subconscious, and we go through life over 90%, no, 95% of the time, replaying whatever the programs are we have, that inner story. So that's really the very first step, of the 10 steps, is to identify and define the habit we want to change or we want to develop. And if we want to develop a new habit that successful people have, we want to exchange whatever it is we're doing now for that new habit. We want to adopt it, but we have to be really clear on what it is we're doing now that we want to change, which leads to the second step, which is measure it. So let's just say I have a tendency to stress out a lot. Well, how often? Are you stressing out most of the day? Is it hourly? Is it once or twice a month? Let's be real clear and specific. And then we get into another step, which is analyze it. Why are you stressing out? And we've talked a lot on this show about root cause analysis. Let's drill down to why are you stressing out? And what we uncover is it's that subconscious programming. Dr. Wayne Dyer he called the subconscious mind the habitual mind, the autopilot. So we want to start by right up front examining what autopilot are we on, and is it friend or foe? Because what we want to do, we are creatures of habit. So like it or not, you want to have habit. Yeah, habits are good for us if they're friends because they make life easier. If your autopilot is programmed to bring you more joy and peace and laughter and progress and open-mindedness, and your habit is to learn something new every day, if your habit is to simply smile a lot and be kind to people, if your habit is to open up your mind and let go of criticism and judgment and negativity. So, and the reverse of that is somebody who has got a tendency, a habit of always seeing what's wrong with the world, focusing on, the environment's falling apart, the government's corrupt, focusing on it's raining outside, I wish it was sunny. Focusing on anything that's different than the now is creating inner conflict. When we disagree with what's going on right now, we are creating internal stress, which is not healthy. That kind of stress is not healthy. Now, if we go to the gym and we exercise, and that's a good habit as long as we do it correctly. If we go to the gym and we exercise, okay, that kind of stress is healthy. You're stressing your muscles, you're stressing your body a little bit so that when it relaxes and recovers, it grows stronger. So the idea of habits, I remember somebody very close to me, actually an addict, an alcoholic and drug addict,
Yeah.
said to me, John, it's I have addictions. I'm an addict. And I said, yeah, so am I. She was like, what do you mean? What, do you have a drinking problem? I said, no, I'm addicted to other things. I'm addicted to lifelong learning. I'm addicted to success. I'm addicted to feeling really good and going to the gym and meditating and doing positive things. I'm addicted to loving relationships. I'm addicted to positivity. I don't see all the negative in the world because you become what you think about. Earl Nightingale. I don't want to look at it. I don't watch the news. I know people who are addicted to the news.
Oh,
Really?
God, yeah.
All you're doing is tuning into negative things. If it's negative, it sells. That's what the journalists all say. People really don't want to hear a lot of positive stuff. They want to see drama. So that's addicted to ego. If I'm addicted to ego, the false self, I don't see the beauty in the world. I only see what's wrong. So we have to be real careful up front to really do an assessment. And I'm a business consultant and I go in and I lead culture change, which think about that. That's habit change organizationally. Now we're changing 55,000 people's habits collectively. Okay, I'm working with companies with 55, 60, 65,000 people, 100,000 people. How do you shift that kind of behavior? Okay, and the way you do it is what I'm describing here in these 10 steps. They apply to us individually as well. We start by defining the current state. What's the current state? How often? And then we measure. How often are you behaving this way? Okay, and then what is the impact of that? Is it healthy? If it's not healthy, what we call undesirable effects, why are we doing it? And we drill down through root cause analysis, the third step, the analysis, to figure out like, okay, a change at this level, what I call a leverage point, changes everything. It's like a reprogramming. If I find the negative programming in my mind and I delete it and I feed my mind with something more healthy, remember what we feed, we grow. If I feed it with something more positive, then the outputs are going to be the same. You've heard me talk in the past, Dr. Pat,
Yeah.
about the transfer function.
Yeah.
Y is a function of X. Essentially, we reap what we sow. And the IPO diagram, the input, process, output diagram. So if you think about making an apple pie, the key inputs will be things like apples and ingredients, very specific, oven temperature, time in the oven, these variables, these are X factors. And if we hold those all consistent, we get very predictable outputs. We get a nice, tasty, timely apple pie.
Yeah.
So if you just now replace that with a recipe for life, what input variables do I have going on that propagate to the results I'm getting in life and my behavior? And if I'm not getting good results, I have to think about what are the inputs. Okay, if think about a simple one, physical health, if I'm overweight or I've got a high blood sugar, or high blood pressure, things like that. What are the inputs contributing to the outputs? So I can get on a treadmill all day long, but if my mind's thinking I'm fat, I'm out of shape, okay, what I think I become. So if I think there's something wrong with me, I could be on the treadmill forever and not lose. How many people do you know who are trying to lose weight who don't?
Yeah.
Or they lose a little bit and it comes back. It's because they haven't changed their mindset. So an alternative to that is if you get on that treadmill, you tell yourself, I am losing weight. I am getting fit. I'm on my way to a target weight, a specific target weight. And now you are actually mind body, you are doing something healthy. Otherwise, you're creating conflict internally. And that conflict, it shows up as stress, shows up as fear, it shows up as shame. I'm ashamed of myself. You beat yourself up, things like that. So, I mean, that's the heart of what we're going to be talking about this hour.
Yeah.
And I'll stop talking now and give you a chance to.
Well, I'll tell you, here to your point, I remember being, what's the word that I want to use? I'm trying to be not so. I remember really being called out the first time that I walked into an AA meeting and didn't say, "Hi, I'm Patty, I'm an addict alcoholic," right? I remember the first time I didn't do that because there was a light bulb that went on in my recovery. And I got so tired of everybody telling me how hard everything was. I really did. And I thought back on when I quit smoking. Now, I don't care what people think, but when you put that nicotine in your body, there's something that goes on there, right? And we know that. We know that. But I quit that thing faster than I stopped eating cheesecake. But what's my point? I never saw it as hard. When I put down that cigarette, John, and I was 3 packs a day, girl. Not kidding. I could have made all the cigarette commercials, but I made my mind up. But I didn't make my mind up it would be hard. I didn't do that. And when I decided to put drugs and alcohol behind me, I didn't see it as hard either. But I was sitting around people that told me how hard it was going to be. And I had to do something about that. I've had a hard life, if you want to say that, but I've had a life full of experiences. I wouldn't replace anything in my life.
Sure.
But how am I going to hold it? And I think that let's talk about this because to your point, I believe we are all addicted to something. Now, that is a global statement, and I'm going to say it's my opinion. So I don't have that written down. But there are things that we define as habits in life. Some of them are good, and some of them may do us harm. but there's something about the way we live, right? There's something that draws us. And now with social media, I'm telling you, John, people cannot put down their phone. But let's go through the steps, because I do believe we have a choice. You know what the greatest decision I made in my recovery? And by the way, I still walk into meetings and I announce who I am and I say I'm recovered. That's what I say. I'm recovered, because that's where I see myself. Or I don't say anything, or I say my name. But here's the line in the book that grabbed me, and I never looked back. And it's in one of the early chapters called We Agnostics, which mentions God and Spirit 112 times. So there's nothing agnostic about that channel. What a great trick. Thank you, Bill Wilson. God either is or God isn't. And they let you have the God of your understanding. You can, whatever you want. You see, I got Kuan Yin in the back, I got Buddha in the back, I got the Tree of Life in the back. So people have to figure out what I actually believe in. But God either is and God either is or God isn't. God is either everything or God is nothing. What will I choose? And I chose to believe everything on my doorstep. I'm an optimist. When they asked me, is the glass half empty and half full? I said, this is the stupidest damn question you ever asked. My glass is always full. So I don't understand why people fill any glass halfway or anything.
Well, it's a perspective, and the glass is either half full or half empty. That's pretty factual. There's two sides to the same coin. The
Yeah,
coin's the glass, all right? And if people are negative, okay, they see it as basically half empty,
half
half
empty.
empty. And you said something earlier about like cigarette smoking and drinking.
Yeah,
If you think it's bad for you, your body will prove you right. If you think it's fine, it's okay. If you do something that you think is wrong, it's bad for you.
that's
If
right.
you're neutral or you think it's good for you, George Burns was on Johnny Carson. I'll
Oh,
never forget this. Johnny Carson said, how many of those, and he's sitting there smoking a cigar. He says, how many of those cigars do you smoke a day? And George Burns said, 4 or 5. And Johnny's just like, what does your doctor think of that? George Burns looks right at me and he goes, my doctor's dead. That's classic George Burns. Okay. Now I know
yeah.
people who smoke their whole lives and they live to be, 90. And I know people who've never touched one with lung cancer. Okay. I know people who are the most healthy diets and exercise, and they die in marathons. Okay. So we have to be careful to be extreme here. And a lot of the Tao teachings, the spiritual teachings, teach balance, okay, and moderation. So I think it's the extremists that really get themselves into the most trouble, one way or the other, because the habit there is judgment. And if a person's overly judging and critical, okay, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous habit. It's much healthier to be open-minded and contemplative, which is why meditation is so valuable,
Oh, yeah.
because you're not sitting there thinking about good and bad. Okay, you're thinking about harmony and balance. Everything's in perfect harmony when you're in perfect harmony. The world's just reflecting back what you got going on internally. So if you see things that are upsetting or disturbing and you have a tendency to get agitated, okay, your body is proving you right by what you think. So you think you're right, where other people can look at the world and go, I think it's absolutely beautiful. And it's yin and yang. It's perfect harmony and balance. So the secret to these, break exchanging one habit for another is number one to identify and define it and then feel it. What does this habit feel like? When I behave this way, how do I feel? Does it make me feel guilty or ashamed? Does it make me feel angry or stressed, or does it make me feel doubtful? Okay, if it does, that's dead weight. And if you think back to, we had a show on the map of consciousness, if it's one of those lower frequency energies, shame and guilt and grief and apathy and fear and lust and even and anger and even pride, those lower 8 frequencies, that's that's not healthy in the long run. That's
Yeah.
weighing you down. So if you feel weighed down, the Buddha said this, if you feel weighed down by anything, a person,
Yep.
a job, a location, a relationship, anything that is weighing you down, you're the problem by what you're thinking. You need to make a change. All right, be the change. You need to just exchange whatever is weighing you down for a different thought process.
Yeah.
Because what's weighing you down is what you think. Okay, it's not the other person, it's not the situation, it's not the job or the boss. You just think that because that's ego. It's your thinking that weighs you down. Remember what Earl Nightingale said, you become what you think. So be careful what you think. And that's where the habits form. Okay, they're cobwebs at first, and then they're steel chains, so to speak, wired together at the end. And then that's even, of course, harder to break. So the 10 steps, just to work through a first of the
Let's
few,
go.
we identify it and define it. What exactly, and I invite the audience now to think about a habit they want to change. It could be, like you said, I'm on my cell phone too much. I don't have enough time. I'm stressed because I'm overwhelmed. Okay, then that's what we're going to look at. Okay, and then we're going to get into what does it feel like to be overwhelmed? Oh God, I'm losing it, and I'm tempted to go to the bar. I'm tempted to do something abusive to my body. It affects my relationships with people. It's just, I know it's not healthy. Okay. So you've identified it and you've defined it and you felt it. Here's the other thing I want to say that's very important, and it goes back to a whole Zen teaching. If it's a feeling that's weighing you down, do not resist it. That's like, wait a minute, what? You're trying to resist that drink? You're trying to resist that anger or that guilt? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, because anything you resist, you make stronger. You're feeding it by giving your attention to it. You're locking the front door. The Zen teaching is let it in the front door and let it out the back door, but don't invite it for tea. Don't harbor it. Byron Katie used to say, thoughts are
Yeah.
like birds landing, in a tree. Don't let them nest there in your tree, your brain, if it's not healthy. They're going to come and go, and you have the power to dismiss anything that's
Absolutely.
not working for you. Don't let them nest in your tree. So we identify it, we process it, so to speak, and we feel it. What does it feel like? What does it feel like before I do this? What does it feel like when I do this? What does it feel like after I
After I
do?
do it.
And I've talked about your EGS, your emotional guidance system, and we all have one. And our emotional guidance system is teaching us something. And so if we feel angry, if we feel depressed, if we feel guilty, if we feel doubtful, whatever it is we're feeling, our emotional guidance system is telling us you're off course. You're off course because you're born to feel joyful. You're born in peace. You're born to be joyful. It's the essence of the world. Trees don't try to grow tall. Flowers don't try to bloom. They do because that's their essence. They're supposed to. We're the same way. But from a very early age, we start getting downloaded with all kinds of things and labels. I'm a this or I'm a that. And so when you say I'm an addict, okay, that's a program. Yeah, I'm an addict. But what you might thinking is I'm an addict of something bad that I'm trying to beat. Why don't you just say I'm an addict for something great? I'm addicted.
Exactly.
It's an exchange. So I mean, we are creatures of habit, and highly successful people have highly successful habits, whether it's physical. And so I invite the audience to think about this. Think about different outputs in your life, different Y factors. Y is a function of X. So let's think about physical. Is there a habit you want to change physically? How about mental? Is there a habit you want to change mentally? Highly effective people are totally into self-help, lifelong learning, reading books, listening to podcasts like this. They're not listening to a bunch of junk. Okay, they're getting sharper over the years, not declining, if you will. So, mental, emotional. What's an when am I feeling emotionally stressed? Or okay. How about relationships? How do I feel in certain relationships? Are they draining me? So you start to look at the output factors. How am I doing financially? Do I have a tendency to blow money on stupid stuff? I'm up at 2 in the morning buying things, Uh, I'm addicted to that, I'm addicted to missing work from time to time, and because I hate my job. These are important things to examine. So we examine them, we feel them, we measure them. How often are we feeling this way? And then we start to say, why? Ask why. That's an analysis. It's the fourth step. Why do I do this? Why do I feel this way? Why am I programmed this way? All right. And remember something, the subconscious mind is a million times more powerful than the conscious mind in terms of processing data. It's like 40 million bits of data per second to 1 million bits of data per second. So here's another thing. If I say to myself consciously, which is the will, I will change this habit. And if the subconscious programming is saying, no, you won't. No, you won't. You've tried that 10 times. That's not going to work. Guess what? You're just going to keep replaying the past because the subconscious is all programmed by the past. And it can only be in the now. The subconscious mind doesn't have creative capacity. It can't be thinking about tomorrow or the next day, and it can't be thinking about something that happened 10 years ago, although that's downloaded into it. The subconscious mind is driving the car while your conscious mind is thinking about who knows what. Here's the other thing is the conscious mind can only think of one thing at a time. You cannot hear two conversations at once. If you're in a room with people and there's multiple conversations, it's one or the other. You cannot hear both. You can only think consciously about one. It cannot multitask. Let me put it that way.
Hmm.
So while we're thinking about whatever we're thinking, by the way, the conscious mind is not present very often, which is why meditation is so important. The conscious mind's thinking about tomorrow or last week. And I like the metaphor, if you will, of a golfer. If you're ready to hit the ball and you're thinking about, geez, I really screwed up on the last hole, or you're thinking about, there's a water up there, and what if I'm going to hit it in the water? You probably will. Okay. You become what you think. So a real skilled golfer is very present. They've let go of whatever's behind them. They're focused on putting the ball in that hole out there. It's the same thing, I'm sure, in ping pong. You have to be present and let go of the past. So these are the beginning steps. And if I'm not playing well, so to speak, and it doesn't feel good to lose. And I ask myself, why am I losing? Okay. And we get to root cause, those X factors. So if I change my diet and I eliminate a lot of sugar in my diet, okay, and I supplement my food with certain supplements targeted at my liver. By the way, the liver is critical here because if you've heard the word livid, well, that comes
Yes,
from liver.
exactly. Yep.
If the liver's out of balance, you're either depressed or you're angry, because depression is anger turned internally. So if you have a tendency to feel depressed or tendency to feel angry, it's because it's because your liver's probably out of balance. And there are all kinds of very healthy things you can do for your liver. Things
Yeah.
like milk thistle, right? And things like, even lemon water, just very targeted things.
Yep. It's
NAC is key for
great.
the liver.
Yeah.
So you learn these things and you make an adjustment on the inputs to get a better output. It's it's science, it's physics. Albert Einstein said, "This is not philosophy, this is physics."
Yeah.
It's cause and effect relationship. So now we start to visualize a change. What is this? What is this new habit? What does this exchange look like? What does this new habit look like? Here's one. I'm going to start eating dinner a little earlier and going for a walk after dinner without without listening to some nonsense. Maybe it's calm music. Maybe it's a productive podcast. Maybe it's nothing at all. I'm
Yeah.
going to listen to the birds singing, things like that. But I'm going to make that a new routine. Okay. I'm just going to give myself a break. I'm going to eat something more nutritious. I'm going to eliminate something from my diet that's unhealthy. I'm going to walk or do some form of exercise, and ideally we walk after a meal at night. That's one of the best times, or early morning.
Yep.
You can combine walking with meditation. I'm going to do a walking meditation. I'm not going to walk with my earbuds in and listening to some nonsense. A habit could be as simple as I'm gonna turn off the news. I turned off the news like 30 years ago, Dr. Pat,
You
because
and
it
me
was just
both.
it was bombarding me with negativity and worry and stress and oh my gosh, there's things going on the other side of the planet. Here's an exercise for everybody. Write down all the things you can control, write down all of the things you cannot control, and let go of all the things you cannot control. Stop even thinking about them. Think about what you can control and control the controllables. So, and by the way, what you can control is a very short list. What you cannot control goes on for
Yeah, it
infinity.
does. It
All right. And
does.
so if I'm root cause analysis, if I'm stressing out a lot and I'm stressing out about things I have no control over, the only one you're hurting is you because you can't do anything for what's outside your control. Maybe you can pray, that might help, but you cannot, if you're putting all your attention on things you can't control, and meanwhile you're not attending to what you can control, what's within your grasp and with things you can do, um, you don't have your priorities straight. So that's another factor here. So let's examine our priorities. Okay, Stephen Covey in the best-selling book, The Seven Habits of Highly
Yeah.
Successful People, one of those seven habits was put first things first.
Yep.
Another one was start with the end in mind. That's the visualize thing. What is it I want to
Perfect.
experience in life in terms of lifestyle? Health, wellness, fitness, financial, relationships. I want the ideal life. And then we identify anything that's obstructing that or tripping us up. It's just, I'm spending too much time doing things that are taking me in the wrong direction. So what can I do to do that? And this is Dr. Pat, this is what I learned many, many, many years ago, decades ago. And it's changed my life entirely. I live an ideal life right now. I really do. And it's because of the consistency, if you will, of the habits. All right.
Yeah.
So next, what we do, and you've heard me talk about FMEA, failure mode and effect analysis. So the next step is we've got a vision of what our ideal is. But
Yes.
now we have direction. And we have identified conflicts. So the story I've been telling myself needs to change. The new story is I'm on my way to this ideal lifestyle. I'm on my way because we have unlimited capacity. I'm on my way. So now what's the risk? What could I trip over? What could I get in trouble with? Um, Now, by the way, as we ascend consciously, like on the map of consciousness, we will leave relationships behind. We,
Exactly.
it's
John,
that's
John, to your point, listen to this here. In 2001, I got the idea. It was called the Transformation Network. I grabbed the domain. I didn't know anything about the domain. Bob Parson had just started to go daddy. And I went in and I got like this domain and that domain and crust busting. And I got them. I saw it on a windshield of my car riding over the I-90. What's in place today is what I saw and what is to be in place 5 years from now. But the risk part, we don't talk about enough. And I really want you to talk about this because I walked away from what everybody else thought I should be doing. My partner, what? I did not get in a relationship with a doctor so that you could do what? Buy airtime, start positive talk, which no, but I didn't do a good job of assessing that risk. Not that I would have changed that. But what happens with that is sometimes it's like you said, there was a risk that I would lose friends, that I would lose colleagues. My friend, Claudia, White Sands Consulting, she's like, you're not going to do these federal contracts with me anymore? I said, no, I'm not. We're still friends, but we don't work together. But talk about the risk because I think what happens sometimes, and walk us through this, is I never saw this as a risk. I never saw, the vision was clear. It was in my heart. I felt it. I I knew what to do in the moment, and year after year after year, until 2009 and the worst economic downturn. And the universe gave me an opportunity to partner with Rhode Island and launch the network in a way I hadn't figured out how to do. But this idea of assess the risk, talk about that, because I believe sometimes that we assess the risk and our failure radar goes on, right? Or other people's opinion is seen as, what I'm going to risk, I'm going to lose all my friends and colleagues. Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because the next step is be the change,
Hmm.
right? But I don't
That's
know how
right.
you become the change if you're dragging three metal coffins wrapped and chained around you with you.
Well, that's right. And, I wrote a book called Beyond Doubt. If you're living with doubt, okay, you're not going to be the change. You're not going to be the change if you're full of doubt, because being the change involves making change, right? And so risk analysis, again, this is a tool I use with corporate clients all the time, is if we're going to make a change, we're going to assess the risk of making it, and we're going to analyze the risk of not making it. And guess what? More often than not, by far more often than not, the risk of staying the same is much greater than the risk of making the change. So, what is the risk of staying in a lousy relationship versus making a change? Well, you might end up spending the rest of your life in doom and gloom and, and missing a much greater lifestyle. What is the risk of staying in a job that's just draining you and dead end? What is the risk of living where you live when it just you don't like it? Okay. Anything weighing you down, if you assess the risk of staying there, is going to feed you with regret. It's quite possibly could make you ill and ultimately kill you. Or you say, you know what, I've evaluated the risk, and here are the things I need to be aware of. And then in an FMEA, a failure mode and effect analysis, we call them countermeasures. What are some things I can do along the way and right now to navigate through that risk, to mitigate that risk? What can I do? And maybe it's taking baby steps. I'm not going to lose 40 pounds overnight. So, okay. Um, Again, I've been through a number of relationships where the more I have ascended, so to speak, on the map of consciousness, the more aware I've become, the more empathetic and
Yeah.
compassionate and loving and forgiving. I don't worry about anything, honestly. I simply don't. I've let go of the idea that I need to worry about anything. And so the only thing I can control is my own mind. And if I start worrying about something I can't control, I drop it, I delete it. So and when we do that, our immune system becomes stronger. We're reducing the stress hormones, the cortisol, we're reducing the adrenaline, the hormones, the fight or flight type of hormones. And when we do that, the body becomes healthier. We just become more relaxed. We become more friendly and easy to get along with. But people who are negative don't like that. And so you start to realize a lot of people who you've been hanging out with and commiserating with about God knows what, the news, the economy, they don't like you anymore. So that's one risk you have to think about is what do I stay with that frequency of energy, or do I let it go and move on? I think risk analysis is key because we don't want to be foolish.
No.
And so to take the time to just evaluate that risk. And then the next step is like you said, be the change. The Nike thing, just do it. Just get started. All right. You walk 1,000 miles beginning with one step. It's an old, Zen teaching. So take the step. And I like to say, hit the delete button on certain things. It's a lot of times it's easier to let go of something than start something new. So you could go through, your closet, so to speak, and just start to get rid of stuff. What am I holding on to this for? It's the same thing in the mind. I could go through wherever I live and just start deleting things. There's a tool I teach in business called the 5 S's. Actually, 5 Japanese words that have been loosely translated into 5 English words. So the first one is sayuri, and it means sort. So when we go into an office, you could do this in your laptop, you could do this in your closet or your refrigerator. You sort out what do you really need and
Yeah.
what don't you need. And it's huge. A lot of times we're just carrying on to things we don't need. You could almost do the same thing in your mind. What do I really need to be thinking about? What is all the noise that I could get rid of? The second one, seitan, it means store, okay, or put it in its right place. So if you think about your kitchen, you sort out where do you want your forks and your knives and your spoons and your pots and your pans and your dishes, and you store them in a place so you don't have to look for them all the time. You know right where they are. In business, it's part of workplace organization. And then there's another S, Sayuri Seitan, CISO, and CISO is essentially shine or sweep, make it clean. So if I always think about like an operating room, if you know you're in the operating room and the surgeon's working on you, okay, everything's right where it needs to be, okay. You don't have a whole bunch of junk in there you don't need, and it's all clean and ready to be used. So it's precise. It's workplace organization. This is a great habit, by the way. If your house is a mess, your car is a mess, your office is a mess, it's what you know, you might want to just start cleaning things up, because if it's a mess, it's a reflection of you being a mess.
Yep.
All right. And it's okay if you that if you're okay with that, fine. So, now we make sure everything's clean. The next S, seketsu, it means to standardize. Okay, to make sure everything it's always in its right place. And when you think about a fast food chain, a McDonald's or something like that, across the whole country, they're all the same. So it's easier to train people. I mean, Southwest Airlines, when Herb Colliher started the airline, had one kind of airplane, the 737. It was so standardized and so simple. It was easier in terms of spare parts, maintenance, training, everything, piloting. And it became wealthier than the top 4 airlines in the
Yeah.
world, believe it or not, in market share, through that focus and that simplicity. And then the last S essentially is sustain. Okay, and so we have to make sure we sustain these changes, and that's actually the last S, or that's the last of the 10 steps, is sustaining it, maintaining and sustaining the gain, and so kind of locking it in, if you will. So I encourage people to think about one habit that they want to change. Um, so you identify it and you define it. Step one, you feel it. You don't resist it. It's almost like you have a conversation with it. Like, what is this telling me? What kind of programming am I running on? It's subconscious, so it's not obvious. It's buried deep in the mind. So, okay, all right, now I'm feeling it, and if I don't like the way it feels, and I believe I will like the way it feels, if I change it. I got to tell you, Dr. Pat, there are days I don't feel like going to the gym, or I don't feel like working out. But
I'm
I'll
with
ask
you.
myself, how will I feel after I do? And I'll feel pretty good. I'll feel proud of myself. I'll feel healthier. So, that's part of the draw. Okay, I might not really feel like doing something right now, cleaning the house or doing, paying my bills or whatever, but I will feel good when it's over. And so that's the power, again, the power of the mind. So
That's
we
really
feel it.
critical. That part you just mentioned. I want to stay with it for one more minute, because right there is a game changer for a lot of people that can't sort of get the other things in line. That feeling. Now, look, people hear me talk about my excitement to go up and playing a table tennis. But I got to tell you, John, there's some days after working 12 hours so far today where I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get my right clothes out. I got to put on my sneakers. My bed, did I clean I mean, that's that line. And then I hit the button that you just said. And my button is every time I go to play, everything about my demeanor changes when I come back from playing. It may take me an hour to get there in traffic on Route 22. Am I looking forward to that? Well, I turn on the radio. But that point you just mentioned, imagine how you'll feel, right?
Yeah.
I joined the gym. I haven't gone every day, but I have gone. But why haven't I gone? Because I forgot what you just told us here today. I forgot. How do
Yeah.
I feel after?
And that leads to another important habit that people should consider is, do I have a tendency to beat myself up? And so, okay, so I missed a day going to the gym. How long am I going to carry that feeling with me? Let it go. You know what? So you didn't go. Accept the fact that that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. It didn't happen. So the more you think about it being wrong, it's just creating more conflict in your own mind. It's over. Let it go. Go tomorrow. Just
I
you
like
know,
that.
yeah, just lighten up. And so we want to, identify it. We want to feel it. And if we feel guilty about certain things, if we feel ashamed, we feel stressed, okay, then we want to measure it. How often do we feel that way? Is it daily? Is it hourly? Is it something that's really chronic? Okay, then that's pretty significant in terms of priorities. So, all right, now let's analyze it. So step four is, let's find out why you're behaving that way and what programming you're running on. Let's really drill down to the program that you might need to delete. I've said this before on the show. I grew up with a I'm not worthy program. Said it every week in church. I'm not worthy. I believe it or not, I was born on Friday the 13th, and with a name like Murphy, as in Murphy's Law, I thought all kinds of things were going to go wrong. And I was very accident prone as a kid. So I had this programming that I'm doomed. You know what? I'm just going to, I keep hurting myself. I'm not worthy of success. I'm not worthy of wealth and an ideal lifestyle. And until I uncovered that program and the habits that were coming from that one single program and delete that program, uh, who knows where I'd be today, if even alive. So that's the power of the analysis and getting down to that
Mhm.
root cause. So we ask why, that's the step four. And then step five is we visualize the change. We become what we dwell on. We become what we think, Earl Nightingale. So what is it? What am I aiming for? Okay, what am I aiming for? And we want to be real specific. Okay, if it's physical, it's an ideal, it's a target weight, it's an energy, it's a look. Okay, it's body language. I'm light. But when I walk into the room, people are attracted to me because of my energy, not just the physical body, but there's just something, there's a essence, a light about, an aura, if you will, about this person. I want that. Okay. That's my vision. And in terms of vision, I don't want to worry about my finances. I want to be in loving, kind relationships. I don't want to be, commiserating over all the things that are wrong in the world. So we want to be real clear on the vision. And I always suggest to people think about it in several ways: physical, mental, emotional. I want to feel at ease and at peace, loving and kind and compassionate. I don't want to feel stress. Okay, so emotional, financial. I want to be independent, financially independent. I don't want to worry about bills and payments and things like that. That's all part of the vision. Professional. I want to be in a job that I just love. I don't even want to think of it as work. I want to think of it as play. I can't wait to get to work to do my thing because it's purposeful and I'm meant to do it. I'm aligned with flow. I'm not chasing a paycheck. The pay's chasing me. All right? Because I'm living with a purpose. And my purpose is to give away the gifts I've been given. So that's all part of this, is what have I been given to give away? And but giving away is a good feeling and it's a great habit. Okay. Giving versus getting is a great habit to form. So things like, and then social relationships and also spiritual. What do you seek spiritually in terms of inner peace and connection, the non-physical, if you will. So that's the visualization. And then we do our risk analysis. All right. So what are the risks of pursuing this vision? What might I stumble upon or have to get over? The next step then is be the change. Step up, take the risk, uh, demonstrate it. If you want peace in your life, demonstrate peace. Be peaceful. Don't wait for the rest of the world to be at peace for you to be at peace. It's not how it works because you're disempowering yourself by thinking that, I can't be at peace if the rest of the world isn't at peace. It's just the opposite. The world can't be at peace if you're not. And when you start to find your own inner peace by letting go of the distractions and all of the false self, if you will, the ego attachments, and you just start waking up every day in bliss and pure peace, you bring more of that into your life. That's law of attraction. So now, once we be the change, this eighth step is feel the change, embed it in your heart. So you're programming your thinking and your beliefs, but your thinking and your beliefs influence your heart and that electromagnetic pull that we attract like energy to. So like energy attracts to like energy. Now our heart coherence is higher, and peace attracts peace. Joy attracts joy. Love attracts joy. Love attracts love. Uh, Meanwhile, misery loves company. So let's hit the delete button on the misery stuff, and let's pull in exactly what it is we want. Uh, and then once we start to really feel what this is like, and beginning in our mind, and it's going to feel great if I work out. It's going to feel great if I stop doing something that's destructive. It's going to feel great if I smile more and people are more friendly with me. And so the step 9 then is to give appreciation. So appreciation and gratitude are two very high frequencies on the map of consciousness, very high. So when I wake up every day, thankful for who I am and what I am and the opportunities I have and the skills and the talents and the gifts I've been given. And I'm thankful even for the problems I have because they're opportunities for me to learn, to grow, to apply myself. What would we do if we didn't have any problems? Everybody's got problems to solve. So you can either look at it negatively, like, oh, I got another, oh, yeah, I got a, or you could say, this is interesting because there's always a solution to every problem. In fact, there's more than one. And there's no such thing as a problem that's negative. Every problem is an opportunity in disguise. So think about it that way. That's a shift in mindset. So now instead of resisting problems and locking the front door, I'm letting these problems come in and I'm pulling people together to help me solve them. And I feel good when I'm past it, you know? Um, that's what the business I'm in, quite honestly, is creative problem solving. So companies call me in, they've got problems, I help them identify root cause and we solve them, and everybody feels good about that. That's purposeful, all right? And then of course the last step the ninth step is to feel that gratitude and appreciation. Okay. Like you, I'm sure, Dr. Pat, you feel really grateful and appreciative that you've kicked certain habits
Yeah.
and you're living a whole different lifestyle.
Yeah.
So we want to embed the new habit with gratitude and appreciation and feeling good about ourselves and recognizing the power we have to actually make change. Okay. We are incredibly powerful beings if we take control of our minds rather than let our minds control us. We've certainly spent time on that. And then that last step is really just how am I going to sustain the gain, maintain and sustain the gain? And we can do that in simple ways. In business, we do it with measurement. okay, and certain governance, if you will. So at an individual level, I'm going to I'm going to hit the gym 3 times a week. Now there'll be some variation from time to time. I'm going to follow through on my commitments, write them down. Okay. Some people even say, I'm going to get a friend or a family member or a coach,
Yeah.
somebody to keep me accountable and, somebody to hold me accountable. And then I'm going to I'm going to relish the improvements I'm making in my life.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Dr. Pat, this is what I did 38 years ago when I started my practice, is I started to develop very good habits, everything from reading and learning and attending conferences and listening to wise people, to taking risks, to just doing it, to improvising and pivoting and adapting
Hmm.
along the way, to the point where every day I feel very grateful for
Yeah.
what I'm doing and where I am, and even right here being with you on the Change Mastery Show.
Yeah. John, thank you so much for today. For people listening, it is what you heard today is an action plan to turn your hope into the life you want. John, how do people find out more about you? Let's make sure we're giving people information.
Yeah, well, I invite people to go to my brand new website. It's just been completely redone. It's johnjmurphy.org, and then you can get a free download ebook on root cause analysis, which is invaluable to get down to the real root causes of the undesirable habits and things in your life. Get down to the root cause, and that's where the action is. So you can go there. Certainly go to my John J. Murphy author YouTube channel, and John J. Murphy author on Facebook. And on LinkedIn, definitely, I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. John J. Murphy Mystic on LinkedIn. Um, Easy to reach. My contact information is on my website, and
Great.
definitely go to the YouTube channel, because I've got over 300 videos, recordings of this show on my channel. So if you like what you heard, share it, and take a look at some of the other shows that Dr. Pat and I have done together.
Absolutely. And thank you for today, because the ending of this show, I'm going to follow those steps. I've already identified 3 things right now that I know that I will do differently, because I can control those things.
Here's one more quick thing, Dr. Pat, for the
Yeah.
audience. A quick exercise. Just go ahead and fold your arms like you normally do.
Right.
Now try doing it the other way. Look at what hand is on top,
Yeah.
and then you try doing it the other way. And a lot of people wait a minute. But it's an example of how habits can die hard, but you can do it.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I had to think about doing that, John. Thank you for that. Thank you all for tuning us in, turning us on. Thank you, Emily. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you for listening to the Change Mastery Show with John J. Murphy, an opportunity to uncover, explore, and experience the path of transformation and illumination. Join Dr. Pat and me on the second Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Never miss an episode. Subscribe, like, and share with your friends. Connect with me on social media. And for questions, comments, or to explore my books and services, visit johnjmurphy.org. Until next time, be the change you want to see in the world.